Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Dr. Emma, and my mission is to replace sexual anxiety with sexual clarity, one evidence-based discussion at a time. Today we are finally tackling a question that has haunted men, and frankly, dominated locker room banter and late-night insecurities for generations. What do women actually want when it comes to size? It is a discussion that is constantly present in our culture, fueled by exaggeration, myth, and unrealistic media portrayals. A relentless cultural noise that tells men they must be larger than life to be adequate. But for a moment, let's leave the chatter and the joking aside and approach this topic with the seriousness it deserves, grounded not in assumption, but in rigorous, clinical research. The truth about female preference is often distorted by social pressure and fear. Men are conditioned to believe that size is the ultimate fear. We need to dismantle this myth, not just for the sake of healthy sexual discourse, but for the sake of men's mental health and the quality of their relationships. The question is not just, does size matter, but rather, how much does it matter? And in relation to what other factors? The answer, as we will see, is far more comforting and infinitely more complex than a tape measure could ever suggest. Before we dive into the direct research, it is crucial to recognize the inherent challenge in studying intimate preferences. If you simply ask someone what they want, their answer may be influenced by what they think they should say, or what they have been programmed to believe by media or peers. Surveys, while useful, can be tainted by social desirability bias, a tendency to give answers that make them look good, or fit a cultural stereotype. To cut through this bias, researchers often have to get creative, looking for ways to capture true, uninhibited preference. One of the most fascinating and revealing methods is to study consumer behavior in a private setting, specifically by analyzing the purchasing patterns of adult toys. The logic here is beautifully simple. When a woman is spending her own money, in the privacy of her own home, on a product designed for her personal pleasure, without the judgment or eyes of a partner, she is making a completely authentic choice, a direct, undeniable statement of her comfort and preference. So what did the data from major adult novelty retailers, spanning across 8 different distributors, actually reveal? The results were starkly consistent and profoundly reassuring. The majority of best-selling products, designed for vaginal insertion, were not the enormous cartoonish extremes often seen in media, but were instead remarkably close to the average human male size. Specifically, the most commonly purchased lengths for these internal toys fell squarely between 4 and 6 inches. I repeat, 4 to 6 inches. On 6 of the 8 major e-commerce platforms analyzed, the average length of the best-selling items was actually under 6 inches. Girth, or circumference, showed a similar trend, averaging less than 4.5 inches. Let's take a moment to absorb that. When women are free to choose the dimensions that bring them the most consistent comfort and satisfaction, they are overwhelmingly choosing products that align almost perfectly with the established medical data on the average erect penis size. This is not a coincidence. It is a clear-cut reflection of physiological compatibility and pleasure. This brings us directly to the widely misunderstood topic of what average actually means. For years, cultural mythology, fueled largely by the often exaggerated anatomy, showcased in adult entertainment, has made men believe that the average is much larger than it truly is, leading to widespread anxiety, known as penile dysmorphia, a clinical term for unnecessary worry about size. Let us consult the rigorous, measured, multi-country studies that define the actual human average. These studies consistently demonstrate that the average erect length falls between 5 and 6 inches, with an average circumference ranging from 4.5 to 5 inches. If your size falls within this 5 to 6 inch range, you are not simply adequate. You are, statistically speaking, normal. And you possess the dimensions that most women naturally gravitate toward for comfort and pleasure, as proven by their purchasing habits. The problem is not the physical reality of the average male body, but the psychological damage done by an unrealistic cultural ideal. Many men mistakenly believe they are undersized because they are comparing themselves to hyper-exaggerated, often digitally altered, standards. The power of this evidence is in its ability to liberate men from that pressure. You are already in the desired range, and your anxiety is the only thing truly standing in the way of your confidence. Now, while the majority preference leans toward the average, A cross-check of the data involving best-selling, realistic dildos, which tend to cater slightly more to curiosity and experimentation, did show a minor upward shift. The average length here was about 6.5 inches, just a touch longer than the median average. What this suggests is that for some women, or perhaps for specific occasions, a slight increase might be interesting to explore, but crucially, this is still far, far away from the double-digit extremes that plague male insecurity. It is a preference for slightly above average, not a demand for the outrageous. However, length is only one part of the equation, and, in many ways, the least important. When researchers focused on other dimensions, they uncovered a factor that many men overlook entirely: girth, or circumference. Their analysis found that price, ease of handling, and most notably, circumference, had a much greater impact on a product's consistent popularity than its sheer length. Women consistently prioritized a comfortable, compatible fit over chasing maximum size. In fact, toys with significantly above average girth often ranked lower in popularity. Why is this the case? It is a matter of practical physiology. The vaginal canal is highly elastic, but it is also designed to comfortably accommodate the average human size. When size, especially girth, moves into the extreme range, it can move beyond comfort and into the realm of discomfort or outright pain, which is of course the antithesis of pleasure. The preference for average girth speaks to the paramount importance of comfort and compatibility in a sustained sexual relationship. A partner who ensures that the experience is comfortable and pleasurable is infinitely more appealing than one who prioritizes a dimension that causes pain or requires constant adjustment. This is where the narrative begins to pivot entirely, moving us away from measurement and towards relationship dynamics. At this point, we must step back entirely from the tape measure and ask the truly fundamental question: if size is largely within the desired range for most men, and if women prioritize comfort and compatibility, what factors actually drive a woman's satisfaction and desire for intimacy? The research consistently points to a constellation of non-physical factors that are far more influential than anatomy alone. We are talking about the qualities that define a deep, meaningful, and mutually satisfying connection. Qualities that build confidence, trust, and a shared vulnerability. The bedrock of female satisfaction is emotional intimacy and trust. A woman's sense of safety and connection with her partner is the primary predictor of her sexual satisfaction. This includes feeling truly seen, heard, and valued outside of the bedroom. Sex is not an isolated physical act. It is the physical expression of a relationship's emotional health. If there is a disconnect, distrust, or lack of respect in the relationship dynamic, no amount of physical size will bridge that gap. Research consistently shows that women who feel a strong emotional bond with their partners report significantly higher rates of sexual fulfillment, a finding that dramatically dethrones size as the ultimate metric of success. Furthermore, communication and attentiveness are essential. The ability of a man to listen, to be present, and to prioritize his partner's pleasure, not his own performance anxiety, is a massive determinant of satisfaction. This involves asking questions, paying attention to nonverbal cues, and being willing to try new things and adapt. A partner who rushes, who is self-focused, or who treats the sexual encounter as a performance to be completed, will inevitably leave their partner feeling disconnected, regardless of physical endowments. A man who is attentive to the small details, who prioritizes foreplay, and who understands that female orgasm is often clitoral, not solely dependent on depth, will always be preferred over someone who is physically larger but emotionally absent. Think about the time invested outside of penetration, the time dedicated to foreplay, to conversation, to simply being present with one another. This preparation and mutual focus on pleasure is the very definition of connection, and it is the single greatest element that leads to a deeply satisfying sexual experience. The man who is confident enough to let go of the pressure of size and focus instead on making his partner feel cherished, heard, and pleasured, is the man who is consistently desired. He is not relying on biology. He is relying on humanity. Finally, let us address the psychological side, specifically the devastating role of male insecurity. Many men who struggle with their self-perception regarding size are actually holding themselves back far more with their anxiety than with their actual bodies. This excessive worry manifests as performance pressure, which can lead to difficulty maintaining an erection, distraction, and a general lack of enjoyment for both people involved. The anxiety itself creates the very problem the man fears, a vicious cycle that disconnects him from the moment and from his partner. The antidote to this insecurity is the knowledge we've discussed today, the overwhelming scientific evidence that average is not just acceptable but desired, and that connection is king. When a man absorbs this truth, he can redirect his energy from internal comparison to external focus on his partner, on communication, on playfulness, and on building intimacy. This shift from performance pressure to present passion is the key to unlocking true sexual confidence. Confidence is not the belief that you are the largest. Confidence is the quiet, internal certainty that you are capable of giving and receiving pleasure, regardless of a single physical dimension. So, let us conclude by bringing the whole picture into sharp focus. The cultural fixation on extreme size is a fantasy, a myth perpetuated by media that does a disservice to both men and women. The reality, confirmed by consumer behavior and clinical research, is that most men are physically adequate, and the average dimensions of the human body are what women overwhelmingly prefer for comfort and pleasure. But the deeper, more profound truth, the answer to what actually matters, is that the ultimate predictor of a woman's fulfillment is not size, but the strength of the emotional connection, the quality of communication, the attentiveness of her partner, and the mutual trust shared between them. A man who is present, confident, and caring can offer a level of intimacy and satisfaction that anatomy alone can never touch. Your worth, your ability to satisfy, and your potential for profound connection have never depended on an inch or a number. They depend entirely on your heart, your mind, and your willingness to connect. Take this evidence, take this reassurance, and let it free you to focus on what truly matters in your intimate life: connection, communication, and confidence. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care of yourself.